We're 3+ years into the Farhan Zaidi era in San Francisco, and it dawns on me today that there's only one player on their 40-man roster who's not here necessarily by a choice that this front office made to put him onto the 40-man roster. There's only one player who we can kind of call inherited anymore. Yes, there are some players like Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, who were here before and are still here now, but they don't count because they could have been, free agents and signed with another team, but this front office made a decision to bring them back. So I want to take a look at the state of the 40-man roster, the state of the Giants, and kind of evaluate how they got here and what they need to do to compete in 2022. So all of that next on today's Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants Baseball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so check us out there if you haven't already. And coming up on today's show, I do want to take a look at the 40-man roster. I was just kind of glancing through it today, and it dawned on me just how much turnover there's been. It's, obviously we knew that there's been a lot of turnover since Farhan Zaidi took over for, the head of baseball operations in the 2018 off season. It was right after that season ended. And yeah, it dawned on me that there's only one guy who's kind of still here because he was under contract then and he's under contract now. Everybody else, this was the off season we were circling on our calendars as the time when all of these inherited players, except for one, would come off the books. And so let's just take a look at where they are and how they got here. And just to end my little teaser there, that one player is Evan Longoria. He is the only player on the 40-man roster who was under contract when Zaidi took over and is still under that same contract now. Like I mentioned with Crawford and Belt, they were here then, they're here now, but Crawford was set to be a free agent after the 2021 season. This front office made a decision to extend him. Brandon Belt was a free agent. This front office made the decision to extend him the qualifying offer, which he accepted, so he's back. So these represent decisions that this front office has made. But Evan Longoria does not represent a decision. I mean, the only decision is just to keep him on the roster, but I'm not really counting that. So it's amazing, right? Because there wasn't anything too dramatic or drastic. It's been kind of incremental steps, and let's be real. I mean, it got a lot better, a lot faster than most people expected. They were quietly competitive in 2020, and then in 2021, they won 107 games, which is, I don't think anybody could have predicted that they would compete as soon as they did, as quickly as they did, let alone set a franchise record in wins in the third year under the new front office. And one of those years wasn't really a normal year, so they didn't get the normal development that you would get. Maybe Logan Webb has his breakout season in 2020 if there's a full year for him to work on whatever it was that he was able to work on to get to the point that he got to in 2021. So a lost year in 2020. So yeah, I mean, it affected the timeline for sure. And also their prospects didn't get a chance to develop in 2020. Neither did the rest of the league, but it definitely changed the timeline. But anyway, I mean, yeah, so the 40-man roster, so much turnover, and where to even begin. Let's look at the outfield as just a spot that was a trouble spot in the last few years under the old regime and quickly kind of turned around with guys like Alex Dickerson arriving and performing and Mike Yastrzemski arriving and performing and others, and it's continued. Dickerson fell off and was DFA'd, so he's not on the 40-man, but Yastrzemski obviously is. He was acquired in a minor trade. Lamont Wade Jr. on the 40-man, of course, acquired in a minor trade. So two real difference makers, not necessarily projecting forward, but Wade Jr. made a huge difference in 2021. Yastrzemski was an impact player in 2020 and 2019 and was decent in 2021. But anyway, of course, those two guys are under club control for years and on the 40-man. Austin Slater, you might be saying, well, he was here before and he's still here now. But as an arbitration-eligible guy, there's no commitment that they had made to Slater. They could have always non-tendered him. They weren't forced to have him come back. So he represents a decision by this front office to keep him in the fold. And yeah, so he's on this 40-man. He was kind of inherited, though, as a player. Darren Ruff signed over from Korea by the new front office. What a signing that has been, because the production has just been elite, especially against left-handed pitching, especially offensively. He's just been a monster. You don't just find these guys anywhere, but they basically picked him up off the scrap heap from the KBO. He had been in the major leagues, went to Korea, raked in Korea. They signed him over here, and he's been kind of a monster offensively ever since. Elliot Ramos now on the 40-man. He was an inherited prospect. But again, there's no one forcing this front office to keep him. But of course, he's a good prospect, so they would and have. Steven Duggar, same thing as Slater, inherited prospect. They've given him a shot like they've given Slater opportunities. Austin Dean is an outfielder recently claimed off waivers. Jalen Davis acquired in that kind of now infamous Sam Dyson trade. Davis hasn't panned out like this front office kind of hoped he would. He just continued to have swing and miss issues, a lot of swing and miss in the strike zone. They have said repeatedly they think that he's a guy who could really be a difference maker, or at least platoon against left-handed pitching and make a difference in that way, but it just hasn't happened for Jalen Davis, and I have to imagine his time is somewhat running out, and if they need a 40-man spot, which they very well could as soon as this offseason, if they make more additions, it's possible Davis is a guy who's kind of on the fringes of the roster there. So coming up next, we're going to look at the infield, which is where there are some players who are still here, familiar names, but also a lot of turnover. And then the pitching staff, my goodness, completely different. So stay tuned for that. But first, it's the holiday season. Grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar, Built Bar. Filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, low in sugar, low in net carbs, and low in fat. High in protein also. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. You get delicious flavor and a healthy profile, and that's so important to me. And also, so many delicious flavors to choose from. Will you go with raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream or peanut butter brownie? Just don't start a debate with your family about what your favorite is, because people get passionate about their favorites and it could get out of hand. Anyway, go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. I've been hearing a lot about Stance apparel lately, especially because they just launched a new line of active apparel. And it's the holiday gift-giving time, and Stance is the coolest gift you can give. They're incredibly comfortable and well-made with their socks, shirts, joggers, and hoodies. They're very different from old and boring socks and underwear and apparel that we've had to settle for since back in the day. Stance has changed that mindset by offering color, comfort, and creativity like no other. Founded in 2009, Stance Apparel represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborators for the ultimate in style and self-expression. Because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. Some of my favorite collaborations include Star Wars, The Office, and Harry Potter. These are fantastic. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in. Those who feel good do good. Go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout, one word, locked on, to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. All right, here we go. We're going to talk more about the Giants' 40-man roster. I just thought it was really interesting that we've gotten to this point where Evan Longoria is the only guy who was under a guaranteed contract when this front office took over and remains under a guaranteed contract now. So Posey, Cueto, Crawford, Belt, even though they're still back, Belt and Crawford, they don't count because this front office made the decision to bring them back. And so we're talking about, the 40-man has 39 guys on it right now. So 38 out of 39 players represent a choice by the front office to bring them in or bring them back. And so that's kind of amazing. We've seen so much turnover. It's the crazy thing about baseball and sports in general. You look back, even if there is a team that has a lot of continuity, like the Giants have had, more than almost any other team, we're talking about guys who have been here a long time. But now nobody's here who was on the team in 2010. No players. And that might make sense to you. 2010 was kind of a long time ago now. But Posey was there, but he's gone now. And Bochy, is gone now. And the front office that was running the show is gone now. Yes, some of them are still in the organization, but like in the role they were in. So anyway, looking at the infield, we of course have Belt and Crawford still here, but the front office made a decision to bring them back, and for good reason. They have improved. That's been such a theme under this new regime, is player development, including at the major league level. I want to use this opportunity to mention, I feel like I've learned so much under this new front office and new kind of coaching staff as well. So many things, like I thought I knew a lot about baseball before, but I've learned so much from them, including just conceptually the idea that player development should continue at the major league level. There was a time not long ago, really it was like JD Martinez when he got a lot better suddenly, and then the Dodgers with like Chris Taylor and Justin Turner. It became clear that swing changes could really make a difference for hitters, but nevertheless, I've learned a lot under this new regime in general. Not to be critical of the old regime at all. I'm just saying I've learned a lot and I mean that, under this new regime, top to bottom. And Belt and Crawford are a perfect example of that. We all kind of thought we knew who they were, and we're looking forward to those contracts expiring so the Giants could finally move on. But now we wanted Posey back. We wanted Belt and Crawford back. Of course, Posey retires. Belt and Crawford are back. Who would have thought when Zaidi took over that was where this team was headed, was making these players better and then not wanting them to leave. So it's kind of incredible. So also on the 40-man in the infield, he is kind of an infield / outfield player, Mauricio Dubon. So he was acquired in the Drew Pomeranz trade in that first season in San Francisco for Zaidi. And, he was a guy who could be a part of the future, and he was to an extent, but he just continued to have kind of chase issues and also base running issues. He was kind of a wild base runner who made a lot of mistakes out there. And Thairo Estrada, the next guy on this infield list, on this 40-man, took over, I would say, that Dubon role in 2021. And Estrada was acquired in a minor trade with the New York Yankees prior to the 2021 season when the Giants felt like they needed a guy who could play shortstop in the upper levels of the minors and could fill in at the major league level if need be. And that's exactly what Estrada has been. And I think he's past Dubon. So speaking of like Jalen Davis being a fringe 40-man guy at this point, I think Dubon has fallen into that category as well. And he could be in jeopardy, and especially because he's out of minor league options. So they can't send him to the minor leagues this upcoming year. So I think something's got to give, and he's definitely a trade candidate at some point. Wilmer Flores was a free agent signing. He was the first multi-year signing by the new front office, and it was a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year club option, and they just exercised the club option earlier this offseason. So he will, in fact, be here for 3 years. I think it's a $9.5 million deal when all is said and done over the 3 years, and that kind of matches up with the production. He's just been a solid, mostly platoon player, not a good defender, but he can hit, and he's just been a good Giant. Definitely, not the fleetest of foot, so the base running and the defense are not the greatest, but he can hit, and that's kind of his role. Tommy La Stella, another free agent signing, for a while was the biggest free agent going into the 2021 season, the biggest free agent investment that this front office had made. 3 years, like 18.25 or 75 million. And the first year was not very good. A lot of injuries and just not great performance. But I look forward to a better year from La Stella in 2022, and he'll be here in 2023 as well. Longoria, like I said, the one holdover, he's finally entering the last year of his guaranteed deal. There is a club option for 2023 for, I think it's $13 million, and there's a $5 million buyout. So really it's an $8 million decision. And to me, that's actually going to be kind of interesting to see. But again, it'll represent a decision. So this is the last player entering the last year of that deal that was inherited by the new front office. Lastly, in the infield, Jason Vossler is on this 40-man roster. He was a minor league free agent, and he signed a major league contract with the Giants last offseason, a guy with options, and they used them this year. We saw he was up and down, and that's kind of the point of a Jason Vossler on the roster. And we saw the upside, but also we saw that, there's some development left for Jason Vossler, but a useful player with minor league options, and we saw that from him this season. So coming up next, we'll take a look at the state of the pitching on the 40-man roster. There's nobody who was who represent, like I said, Evan Longoria, the only guy who represents not a decision is what I'm trying to say. I'm having a hard time saying it, but that's what I'm trying to say. So we'll look at the pitchers next. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football season continues the march to the playoffs, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about the state of the pitchers on the 40-man roster. Oh yeah, the catchers too. I always forget about them. Not a good time to forget about them, given that Buster Posey is no longer on this 40-man roster for the first time since, was he put 9? Yeah. So Buster Posey no longer here. So the state of the Giants catchers on the 40-man roster, it's Joey Bart and Kurt Casale. So of course Bart was a draft pick, of course, by the Giants, second overall pick in 2018, and he's made his way onto the 40-man roster. A prospect inherited by new front office, but a decision to kind of keep him in the fold. Nothing guaranteed for Bart. So a decision nonetheless, but an inherited prospect. Kurt Casale was a free agent signing by the Giants last offseason, and he was arbitration eligible. So he had been non-tendered by the Reds, and so that's why they signed him to a one-year deal last year. But they maintained club control over Casale for one more season. They tendered him a contract this offseason, and so he will be back in 2022. So looking at the pitchers, Alex Wood, free agent signing, worked out really well in year one. It was a very cheap one-year deal coming off a down year for Wood. He pitched so well that he got a 2-year, $25 million guarantee from the Giants this offseason. Logan Webb, an inherited prospect. But the Giants, this front office kind of almost more so than the old one, I would say, believed in Logan Webb and aggressively promoted him to the major leagues and just continued to say they think he can be really, really good. And boom, were they right. He just had an absolute breakout season in 2021. I just can't get over the development for Webb and just how dominant he was in the NLDS. I mean, he looked like unhittable against the Dodgers, a very, very good Dodgers team, and Logan Webb just absolutely dominated. So incredible stuff there. Gregory Santos was an inherited prospect, but this front office aggressively put him on the 40-man roster, and then he was hit with a PED suspension this season after making his major league debut. But, he'll come back in terms of serving his suspension next year and figures to be a part of the bullpen or the rotation down the road for the Giants. Tyler Rogers, an inherited prospect. He was in the minor leagues with the Giants for a long time, and the old front office, for whatever reason, never gave him a shot at the major league level. But this front office did, and they're better off for it. Rogers has become a very useful major league arm, very funky and unusual, but effective nonetheless. Randy Rodriguez, this is the first guy going through here. I don't quite know exactly how he was acquired when he was drafted. I don't think we even talked about when Rodriguez was added to the 40-man roster. Remember the deadline to protect players from the Rule 5 draft. Randy Rodriguez was one of the kind of surprise additions to the 40-man roster to protect players from the Rule 5 draft. So I'm having trouble kind of pulling his name up right now. But he was in A-ball, and so I think he was probably drafted under this new front office. And so he's one of the few guys so far as we go through here actually drafted by this front office and put on the 40-man. But I could be wrong about that. But given his age, he was born in 1999, that may be the case. I'll check back and confirm at some point. Jake McGee, free agent signing, has been a good one. Junior Marte, it's I think pronounced Junior Marte. Again, like Randy Rodriguez, I'm not exactly sure when he was acquired, but he was just added to the 40-man roster. I think he was a waiver claim or a free agent, minor league free agent. Not exactly positive on Junior Marte, but just added to the 40-man roster this offseason. Sammy Long, free agent signing, and figures to possibly be a significant part of the future and may continue to get starts with the Giants here. Zach Littell was a free agent signing. Dominic Leone, free agent signing. A lot of these guys, I think, were minor league deals with invitations to spring training. Sean Jelly, an inherited prospect, was put on the 40-man this winter. Hunter Harvey was a waiver claim this offseason. Harleen Garcia was a waiver claim in 2019 and has been a great one ever since he's been acquired, or maybe waiver claim in 2020, or I can't remember, 2019 or 2020, certainly by this new front office, and he has been fantastic. Overall numbers, just one of the top ERAs in the game since being claimed by the Giants whenever, I think it was in 2019. Camilo Doval was an inherited prospect, but they aggressively added him to the 40-man and aggressively promoted him through the system to the point where he is now, looking like he'll enter 2022 as the top option in relief potentially for the Giants. His, kind of like Logan Webb, emergence and breakout happened abruptly, and the dominance was overwhelming. So great story for Camilo Doval in 2021. DeSclafani, of course, was a free agent, signing a cheap one-year deal. Pitched so well, he pitched his way to a 3-year, $36 million deal. Alex Cobb just signed a 2-year, $20 million guarantee with a 10-year club option. Kervin Castro, similar to Doval, inherited but aggressively added to the 40-man and promoted to the Major League roster. John Brebbia was a free agent signing. Tyler Beede was an inherited prospect, but again, nothing guaranteed to Tyler Beede, and so that's why Evan Longoria is still the only guy. Caleb Berriger, inherited prospect, aggressive promotion, fell off the face of the earth around the same time as the sticky stuff crackdown, and so I've had my suspicions about if they just kind of think a key to his success may have been using the sticky stuff, because what happened to Caleb Berriger? He just kind of fell off the face of the earth around the time of the sticky stuff crackdown. So I hate to have kind of speculated like that, but that was his whole game, right? Was the high fastball and just kind of that vertical movement over jumping over the bats of hitters. So it's just a little suspicious to me. So we'll see what ends up happening there. And lastly, Jose Alvarez, a free agent signing, and had a solid season in relief for the Giants and will be back in 2022. Of course, anyone who's on this 40-man roster should be back into next year. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Coming up tomorrow, we will be doing a mailbag, so please come back for that and look out on Twitter for the prompt. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Anyway, I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.